Chapter 8. It was a morning. He knew it was a morning because Grayson had gone. Peter, the footman, had come out to put out the candles, draw back one of the curtains, and began quietly tidy up. Whether it was a morning or evening, Friday or Sunday, made no difference. It was all just the same. The annoying, unmitigated, agonizing pain, never ceasing for the instant, the consciousness of life, inexorably whining but not yet extinguished. The approach of that ever-dreaded hateful death, which was the only reality, always the same falsity. What were days, weeks, hours in such a case? Will you have some tea, sir? You want seem to be wrangler and wish the gentlefolk to drink tea in the morning, thought Ivan Ilych, and then he said no. Would you like to move on to the sofa, sir? He wants to tidy up the room, and I'm in the way. I'm uncleanness and disorder, he thought, and said only, no, leave me alone. The man went on, bustling about. Ivan Ilych stretched out his hand. Peter came up, ready to help. What did it, sir? My watch. Peter took the watch, which was close at hand, and gave it to his master. 8:30. Aren't they up? No, sir. He said, Vladimir Ivanovich, when I gone to school, Praskovia Fedorovna ordered me to wake her if you ask for her. Shall I do so? No, sir, no need to. Members, I'd better have some tea, he thought, and did aloud. Yes, bring me some tea. Peter went to the door, but Ivan Ilych dreaded being left alone. What kind of kept him here? Oh, yes, my medicine. Peter, give me my medicine. Why not? Bamberger may still do some good. It took a spoonful and swallowed. No, it won't help. It's all tomfoolery, all deception, he decided as soon as he became aware of the familiar, sickly, hopeless taste. No, I can't believe in it any longer. But the pen, why this pen? If we would only say just for a moment. And he moaned. Peter turned towards him. It's all right. Go on to fetch me some tea. Peter went out. Left alone, Ivan Ilych groaned, not so much with the pen, terrible though that it was, as from mental anguish. Always, forever the same. Always those endless days and nights. If only it would come quicker. If only it would come quicker. Death. Darkness? No. Anything rather than death. When Peter returned with the tea on the tree, Ivan Ilych stared at him for a time in perplexity, not realizing who and what he was. Peter was disconcerted by that look. At his embarrassment brought Ivan Ilych himself. Oh, tea, all right, put it down. Only help me to wash and put on a clean shirt. And Ivan Ilych began to wash with pauses for rest. He washed his hands, then his face, cleansed his teeth, brushed his hair, looked in the glass. He was terrified by what he saw, especially by the limp way in which his hair clung to his pallid forehead. The shirt was being changed. He knew that he would be still more frightened at the sight of his body, so he wore looking at it. Finally, he was ready. He drew on a dressing gown, wrapped himself in a plaid, and sat down in the armchair to take his tea. For the moment he felt refreshed, but as soon as he began to drink the tea, he was again aware of the same taste, and the pen also returned. He finished with effort, and then lay down stretching out his legs to dismiss Peter. Also, always the same. Now the spark of hope flashed up, and the sea of despair rages, and always pain, always despair, and always the same. When alone, he had a dreadful and distressing desire to call someone, but he knew beforehand that if with others present, it would be still worse. Another dose of morphine to lose consciousness. I will call him, the doctor, and might think of something else. It's impossible to go on like this. An hour and another passed like that. But now there is a ring at the doorbell. Pampers, it is the doctor? It is. He comes in fresh, hearty, plump, and cheerful, with a look on his face that seemed to say, "There now, you are in a panic about something, but we'll arrange it all for you directly." The doctor knows this expression is out of place here, but has put it on once more and cannot take it off, like a man who has to put on a frock coat in the morning to pay a round of calls. The doctor rubbed his hands vigorously and reassuringly. "Ah, Bear, how cold it is! There is such a sharp frost. Just let me warm myself," he says, as if it were only a matter of waiting till he was warm, and then he would put everything right. "Well now, how are you?" Ivan Ilych felt that the doctor would like to say, "Well, how are our affairs?" But then even he felt that this would not do, and says instead, "What sort of a night have you had?" Ivan Illich looked at him as much as to say, "Are you really never ashamed of lying?" But the dog does not wish to understand this question. Ivan Illich said, "It's as terrible as ever. The pain never leaves me and never subsides. If only something. Yes, you sick people are always like that. They're not think I'm warm enough. Even Praskovia Flarovina, who is so particular, could have found no fault with my temperature. Well, now like I say good morning," and the doctor presses the patient's hand. Then, dropping his former playfulness, he begins with the most serious face to examine the patient, feeling the pulse and taking his temperature, and then begins the sounding and the auscultation. Ilych knows quite well, and definitely all this is nonsense and pure deception. But when the doctor, getting down his knee, leaning over him, putting his ear first higher than lower, and performs various gymnastic movements over him, with a singular expression on his face, Ilych submits to it all as he used to submit to the speeches of his lawyers. So he knew very well that they were all lying, and why they were lying. The doctor, kneeling on the sofa, is still sounding him when Praskovia, throwing out the silk dress, rustled at the door, and she is heard scolding Peter for not having let her know of the doctor's arrival. She comes in, gives her husband, at once proceed to prove that she had been up for a long time already, and only owing to a misunderstanding failed to be there when the doctor arrived. Ilych look at her, scan her all over, says against her the whiteness, the plumpness, and cleanness of her hands and neck, and the gloss of her hair, the sparkle of her within serious eyes. He hates her with his whole soul, and the thrill of the hatred he felt for her makes him suffer from her touch. Her attitude towards him and disease is still the same, just as the doctor had adopted a certain relation to his patient which he could not abandon, so had she formed one towards him that he was not doing something he ought to do, and was himself to blame, and then she reproached him lovingly for all this, and she could not now change that attitude. You see, he doesn't listen to me. He doesn't take his medicine at the proper time, and above all, she lies in a position that is no doubt bad for him. He lies in a position that is no doubt bad for him with his legs up. To describe how he had made Garrison hold his legs up, the doctor smiled with contemptuous affability and said, "What's to be done? The sick people do have foolish fancies for that kind, but we must forgive them." When the examination was over, the doctor looked at his watch, and then Praskovia Fedorovna announced to Ivan Ilych that it was of course as he pleased, but he had sent today for a celebrated specialist who would examine him and have a consultation with Michael Danilovich. It doesn't raise any objections. "I'm doing this for my own sake," she said ironically, letting it be felt that it was doing it all for his sake. and I only said this to leave him no right to refuse. He remained silent, knitting his brows. He felt that he was surrounded or involved in a mesh of falsity that it was hard to unravel anything. Everything she did for him was entirely for her own sake. She told him she was doing it for her sake what she actually was doing for herself. Excuse me. And she told him she was doing herself what she actually was doing for herself, as if it was so incredible that he must understand the opposite. And 11:30, the celebrated specialist arrived. Again, the sounding began as a significant conversations in his presence and in another room about the kidneys, the appendix, and the questions and the answers with such air of importance that again, instead of the real question of life and death, which now alone confronted him, the question arose of the kidney and the appendix, which were not behaving as they ought to, and would now be attacked by Manco, Danilovich, and the specialist, and forced to amend their ways. Celebrity specialist took leave of him with a serious, though not hopeless look, and in reply to the 10-minute question, Ilych, with eyes glistening with fear and hope, put to him as to whether there was a chance of recovery, said that he could not watch for it, but there was a possibility. The look of hope with which Ilych watched the doctor out was so pathetic that Praskovya Fedorovna, seeing it, even wept as she felt the room to hand. She left the room to hand the doctor his fee. The gleam of hope kindled by the doctor's encouragement did not last long. The same room, the same pictures, curtains, wallpaper, medicine bottles were all there to the same aching, suffering body when Lich began to mourn. They gave him some contenders injection. They sunk into oblivion. It was twilight when he came to. They brought him his dinner and they swallowed some beef tea with difficulty, and then everything was the same again, and night was coming on. After dinner at 7 o'clock, Praskovya Fedorovna came into the room with the evening dress, her full bosom pushed up by her corset, and with traces of powder on her face. She had reminded him in the morning that they were going to the theater. Sarah Brahant was within the town, and they had a box, which had insisted on their taking. Now, he had forgotten about it. Her toilet offended him, but he concealed his vexation when he remembered that he had himself insisted on their securing a box and going, because it would be instructive and aesthetic pleasure for the children. Praskovya Fedorovna came in, self-satisfied, but yet with a rather guilty air. She sat down and asked how he was, but he saw only for the sake of asking, not in order to learn about it, knowing that there was nothing to learn, and then went on to what he really wanted to say, that she would not on any account have gone, but that box had been taken, and Helen and the daughter were going, as well as Petrenskiv, the examining magistrate, the daughter's fiancé, and that it was out of the question to let them go alone, but that she would have much preferred to sit with him for a while, that he must be sure to follow doctor's orders while she was away. Oh, and Fedor Petrovich, the fiancé, would like to come in, he, Elisa? All right. The doctor came in full evening dress, her fresh young flesh exposed, making a shoulder for them were a flesh which in his own case caused so much suffering. Strong, healthy, evidently in love, and impatient with illness, suffering, death, because they interfered with her happiness. Fedor Petrovich came in too, in evening dress, her hair curled a la capot, a tight, stiff collar, around his long, sinewy neck, enormous white shirt front, the narrow black trousers tightly stretched over his strong thighs, and one white glove tightly drawn on was holding the opera hand in his hand. Following him, the schoolboy crept in unnoticed, in a new uniform, poor little fellow, and wearing gloves. Terribly dark shadows showed under his eyes, and the meaning of which Ivan Ilyich knew well. His son had always seemed pathetic to him, and now it was dreadful to see the boy's frightened look of pity. It seemed to Ivan Ilyich that once young, was the only one besides Gerizim who understood and pitied him. They all sat down again and asked how he was. A silence followed. Lisa asked her mother about the opera glasses, and there was an altercation between mother and daughter as to who had taken them or where they had been put. This occasioned some unpleasantness. Fyodor Petrovich inquired of Ivan Ilyich whether he had ever seen Sarah Bernhardt. Ivan Ilyich did not at first catch the question, but then replied, "No. Have you seen her before?" "Yes. Jenny Lokovera." Raskovia and Fedorina mentioned some roles in which Sarah Bernhardt had particularly good. Her daughter disagreed. Conversations sprung up as to the elegance and realism of her acting, the sort of conversation that is always repeated and is always the same. In the midst of the conversation, Fyodor Petrovich glanced at Ivan Ilyich and became silent. The others also looked at him and grew silent. Ivan Ilyich was staring with glittering eyes straight before him, evidently indignant with them. This had to be rectified, but it was impossible to do so. The silence had to be broken. But for a time no one dared to break it. They all became afraid that the conventional deception would suddenly become obvious, and the truth become plain to all. Lisa was the first to pluck out courage and break the silence, and by trying to hide what everybody was feeling, he betrayed it. "Well, if we're going, it's time to start," she said, looking at her watch, a present from her father, and with a faint significant smile, and Fyodor Petrovich relating to something known only to them. She got up with a rustle of her dress. They all rose, said good night, and went away. When they gone, it seemed to Ivan Ilyich that he felt better. The falsity had gone with them, but the pain remained, the same pain, the same fear that made everything monotonously alike. Nothing harder, nothing easier, everything was worse. Again, minute followed that minute, an hour followed up after hour. Everything remained the same, and there was no sensation. And the inevitable end of it all became more and more terrible. "Yes, Senegarism here?" replied to a question Peter asked.